Welcome, everybody, to the American Space Museum. I'm Mark Marquette, and we're so glad you're with us to stay curious today with a room full of kids. And Adrienne Romberger's with us, who wrote a children's book that our green screen you read to these kids at the Boys and Girls Club. Adrienne, great to see you.
Thank you
Welcome
so
to Stay
much.
Curious.
Thank you. This is a real honor. Thank you so much.
Well, no, the honor's ours to promote your little cute book here, and a fascinating lady here. You're going to learn a little bit about what she did out at Kennedy Space Center, as sort of an astronaut wrangler out there.
A little bit of one, yes.
And
Among other
you
things.
dealt with space camp out there, and then she got inspired to write a book, Ticket to Space, and we're going to hear all about that inspiration and so forth here. But as we have a green screen here, we have astronaut Winston Scott is in the back, and there's you to the left of him, and Jolynn Nelson, who's one of our city council members here and involved with the Boys and Girls Club. That was a fun day.
Oh, it was terrific.
And we'll see some pictures of that. But tell us a little bit about yourself. Where'd you grow up, and what kind of career did you get embarked on?
Well, I was born in Glen Ridge, New Jersey.
Somebody else famous
Yes.
was born there.
Buzz Aldrin was also born in Glen Ridge, New Jersey.
All right.
In the same hospital, no doubt. And but we moved to South Florida.
I thought it was a log cabin because
No.
Buzz is 93 years old.
Yeah, I was
Not
born
saying
after
you were
him.
born in a log cabin, but I just wanted to get that in that Buzz is 93.
Yes, there's a
He
little
was
time
the first,
span.
second, or third baby born in that hospital.
Maybe, I don't know. But we moved to Miami Shores, in the mid 50s.
Uh-huh.
And so I've been in South Florida ever since, until just the last 8 years we moved up here
Oh,
to
wow,
Titusville. So I grew
the
up in
changes you've seen in the state of Florida over
Oh,
the
yeah.
decades.
amazing, really. It was a lot
Yeah.
to see. A lot to see.
I moved here 5 years ago. I wish there was orange groves and stuff active like that was 30 years ago.
Yeah, you mean there aren't?
Well, there are a few, but not.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. There you go.
Well, if you drive in the middle of the state, you might still see some
Mhm.
rolling along.
Still a lot of Florida oranges, but the moms and pops ones that were around
Right,
here
that's right.
years ago, I understand the kids didn't want to do it,
Yeah.
So that's the wrong Adrian, Marty.
I know, Mark. I can't find it.
Okay.
It's not
All
on
right.
here.
Well, don't put that up there then. That's
Why can't we get back to you?
okay. Well, we got the wrong nameplate down there. I thought we had one up there, but
That's all right.
Marty's looking around for it and he'll find it there. Adrienne Romberger is our
Romberger,
guest
Right.
here. And let's show a picture of you. There's your book, Ticket to Space.
Right.
All right. We wanted to mention you married this fine man that's in our room here,
Right.
Bill,
Bill, wonderful man. We've been married 45 years.
and children.
We have 2 sons,
Okay.
2 grandchildren. I wrote the book basically for the grandboys.
All right.
And that little boy in there is a little conglomeration of those, a little bit of blend of those 2 little boys.
Interesting. Okay. Rocky.
Rocky
Right.
is the name. Actually, Rocky is, I thought it sounded, you'd think common sense would tell you that's what you'd name the rocket. But I thought, no, well, we won't follow that. We'll just
Marty,
call the
just-
little boy.
Marty, just don't put anything down there. That,
I'm just trying to get back to your name. I can't even get to your name.
well, okay, well, just take it all off there if you can. We had Bruce Smith on here Tuesday, I think, or Wednesday. Bendix engineer. Anyway, here is the cute little book, and what is beautiful about this book. Tell us what special event is going to happen with this book.
Well, there's a wonderful organization called Storytime from Space, which I had never heard of. But when I was a tour guide out at the Kennedy Space Center, my job was to talk to people, talk to a lovely lady in the rocket garden one day. And I said, "Did you have a good day?" It was the end of the day. She said, "Oh, I've had a great day. I have one of my best friends just put a book up in space." I said, "Well, how did that happen?" And so she told me it went up to the International Space Station, and an astronaut read it to millions of children around the world. And I said, "What was the book about?" And she said, "It's about cats in space." And I thought, wow, if maybe they might be interested in my book. But at that point, I had just written it. I only printed one. It was sort of on a back burner. Maybe someday I'll publish it. So after we published it, I looked into who puts books up in space. Storytime from Space. I wish every teacher, especially in Brevard County, would get access to Storytime from Space. You just go to storytimefromspace.com. And if you go to Amazon and you see my book on there, the new logo, it's not on there, but it's on here.
Marty, you had the right one.
a-
Now it's back to Adrienne Harrison
Anyway,
on there.
this little logo here is Storytime from Space. So it's a nonprofit organization, and
Thank you.
the nonprofit organization made up of astronauts and teachers. They select a couple of books a year. They've been doing it since 2017. And the books that are selected are launched up on a crew or something that's bringing supplies, a supply mission. And my particular book is going up on Crew 6, which currently is scheduled for February 26th. And so it's going up on a SpaceX, and it will go to the International Space Station. And once it's there, just like the lady in the rocket garden told me with her friend's book, an astronaut will read it aloud, and millions of children around the world will hear this little book.
That
And
is
I
so
still
cool.
can't even believe it when I say it.
Yeah, well, good
I really
for you.
can.
Yeah,
It's
good
pretty,
for you.
It's very special.
You'll know. We'll try to watch that and get as many people as we can to watch that. Of course, it'll be on NASA TV and redone. You can probably watch repeats of it.
What I can add to that, though, if I might, is that Storytime from Space, they have books not just for little children. My book is for like preschool through third grade, but they have it all the way up through like middle school. So the books, the only criteria was that it is something that is promoting STEM research and for children around the world, and it can be read in 15 to 20 minutes. And so they're not all for little children. So any science teacher, any elementary teacher, it's free at Storytime from Space. My book's not on there yet. It won't be probably till March or April because it hasn't launched yet. But it's a wonderful resource for teachers, libraries, Storytime from Space. And right now they've got about 24 books up there that are on their website, and you just download it and look at it in your living room or in your classroom.
Well, we'll check that out on our Stay Curious Facebook and direct people there. You mentioned that Cats in Space.
Something
was a
about
book,
cats.
yeah.
I don't know the name of it.
Marty, that perked up Carlton Bailey right there because he's a cat lover. Hey, good morning, Carlton, or good afternoon from your nap there. He's going to be looking that book up. He probably already Googled it there.
It was one of the early ones that went up.
We're talking to Adrienne Romberger, and thank you, Marty. We did a little technical snafu there, getting her name up there, but we're glad that she's in here. And this is what our Stay Curious is all about, Adrienne. It's just not space history of the astronauts and the unmanned spacecraft, but people on Earth trying to inspire our youth to get off the Earth and think of careers about exploration on there. And you are no stranger at reading books to kids yourself there.
Right, that's correct.
There's the event at the Boys and Girls Club that was a lot of fun that I was privileged to be at there. What do you find about these events that is there a common thread between them, or in this world of electronic?
You mean having a paperback book?
Yeah, having a paperback book.
Yeah, I
versus,
don't have a
reading
green
the
screen and
Kindle
all
or
this.
something?
Yeah, it's just me with a book.
Yeah,
you're right.
But the reception of the kids when you do this.
Well, you saw it, and they're receptive. And I learned when I was teaching fourth grade that the way to get their attention is with a book that's got lots of color. And they love the books that rhyme. So I made mine a rhyming book. They love Dr. Seuss. Anything Dr. Seuss, they got all excited about. So I thought if I could make it rhyme, and if I could make it colorful, and tell a story and I love history. I taught history for 10 years in high school. So I love history. So I thought if I can blend all that together and keep their interest, that would be great. And so I'd like to not just have a colorful book that rhymes, but also get them a little educated, a little inspired perhaps by the history of the U.S. space program, because it's an amazing story.
And your cute little book here does tell the story, very concise. We'll talk about that here in a minute when we talk a little more about the book, but has its perks where you get to meet a few astronauts, but that doesn't, you've been involved with astronaut community for a long time, you were telling me. So tell me about that now, about your involvement with Kennedy Visitors Complex.
Right. When I was teaching fourth grade, when you teach fourth grade all over America, you teach about the history of your state. So what seemed like a great idea was to go to the Kennedy Space Center. And I taught in Boca Raton, Florida. And so we would go up every year for 3 days to the Kennedy Space Center. And it enhanced my interest even more because we were on the simulators and at the space camp, and the kids just had a ball. That space camp was started, you probably know more about it than I do because you're so educated on all that, but Alan Shepard was one of the people that founded that space camp, as I recall.
Okay.
And they would tell me, gee, you just missed him. He was here yesterday. It was in the 90s.
Huh.
And he was coming and going, especially during the winter season. And I told the kids, keep your eyes out. We may see Alan Shepard. So they were always looking. But we did bump into Story Musgrave. And what an amazing man he is.
Yeah, Story.
And
I've
that
met
was,
many
yeah, I
times.
bet you have.
Probably one of the most intelligent human beings you'll ever be around. No doubt.
There's no
He's
doubt.
got like 5 or 6 doctorate degrees.
I
and
know.
Just, he is a nice guy too.
Yes, very nice guy. I also heard that he, I just heard this, that he also did some illustrations for Disney. Did
Really?
you ever hear
Story
that?
Musgrave? Marty, did you ever hear Story Musgrave had a artistic bend to him?
I heard
I
that.
bet Doug Forrest is wondering that, and Chris Calley. I do know this about Story Musgrave, one of our most experienced astronauts, and
Hmm.
he distinctively has the shaved head and did the first EVA to repair the Hubble.
Yes.
He was an expert in palm trees. He had
I've
a
heard
palm tree grove
Yeah.
in, I think, around Kissimmee is where he lived for years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen a picture of him on a gigantic bulldozer that you could hardly see him on, lifting up palm trees.
Right.
Yeah, very interesting.
Well, he's a lovely man. And speaking of that, when he was coming one day, I was speaking to one of the employees out there, and she said, boy, last time I saw Story Musgrave, he brought me a palm.
Oh,
And I said, how did that happen? She said, well, I saw him and asked him what he was up to, and he said he had a palm farm. And I said, she said, I've always wanted a nice palm tree for, where do you want it? So he brought it in, carried in the palm plant, and handed it to her.
that's interesting.
The
That
man-
sounds like Story. Yeah, he'd come down to Winter Star Party in the Florida Keys, where I'd be at most
Oh,
Februaries
wow.
and hang out 2 or 3 days with everybody. Several times he did that. And Winston Scott, what a great guy to hang
Oh,
out
yeah.
with around here. That's a Miami product too,
Yes.
down
uh-huh,
there.
Right.
Right. He was. And thank you, Winston, for all you do in our Brevard community here on the Space Coast, where we like to say we're in the birthplace of America's space age when you're in
Absolutely.
Brevard County. This is the delivery room.
Yes,
Yeah.
this absolutely is.
Well, you've been blessed with other travels. We're going to talk about your book here, but your book, we hope to inspire a lot of kids with, and we're going to get a thumbnail of it here in just a second. But Marty and I this week, and some of us at the Space Museum, have enjoyed the astronaut du jour this week,
Hmm.
Mr. Tom Jones,
Oh, yes.
and he talks about, there he is, a picture I took this morning,
Hmm.
where he's silhouetted against the book that his grandmother gave him and he took 30 years later, he's in space with that book.
Amazing.
And,
Amazing.
and this is what
And I
you
have a
hope to
grandmother
do.
connection.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the book
Yeah.
with your grandmother there.
Yeah, but isn't that something?
Yeah, he was even pointing out that his grandmother got it in the, it's 50 cents, like 50 years ago,
Yeah.
and she even got it in the discount bin as a sticker on there.
Isn't that something?
But he took that to space with him as part of his
Isn't that
personal
something?
kit up there. And you get a chance to see Tom Jones, go ahead and do that. And here we got a picture of you out where. What's this all
This
about?
is on 39A. This is when SpaceX was remodeling it, going from the shuttle days to Falcon 9.
Yeah,
And so this was taken, I believe it was in 2016.
sweet. And then
And that was really exciting to be out there. Because here I had watched 3 Apollos launch from there. So to stand there to me was just awesome.
yes, you mentioned there you are, obviously at the famous Stonehenge.
Right. They don't
We'll
launch.
talk about those 3 Apollos in a minute. So, but you did your share of You were a tour guide for Queen Elizabeth II?
No, the on the original Queen Elizabeth. That's how old I am.
Oh,
On the original Queen
excuse
Elizabeth,
me.
the original Queen that was the sister ship to the Mary that's in California.
Uh-huh.
Well, for a while it was retired. They retired it into Fort Lauderdale, and I was in college, and that was one of my first
Oh.
jobs, and I was a tour guide on there. Christmas, the holidays, summers, and I was extremely shy. And that got me out of being shy when you're suddenly taking 70 people around this huge ship that's it's like
Yeah.
1,000 feet long. Anyway, so
How interesting was that? Some of our viewers obviously maybe you toured them. I don't know.
I may
never
have.
took that tour, but
oh, it wasn't there that long. It was just
uh-huh.
there a few years, and then it ended up in California, in Hong Kong, and it sank in Hong Kong Harbor.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in fact, there's a 007 that was made on the sunken ship in Hong Kong Harbor.
Okay.
I don't remember which one it is, but some of your
All right.
viewers
Do you
may know
remember
that.
was it Pierce Bronson or Daniel Craig? Probably not Daniel Craig.
I don't.
That
Who was the one that was in Maverick?
in
The,
which
one of the brothers was the British fellow that was in Maverick.
Maverick?
The original Maverick
Someone's
TV
going to
show.
know out there. Marty's
Somebody
going to
will
tell us
know.
here in a minute
I
there.
can't think of his name.
Well, you
Senior
had
moment.
your taste of space. Look at
Yes.
that, Marty. On the
Yeah.
on the vomit comet.
Right,
You have
I
a Jeep
did.
there.
Yeah, that was something. We did 17 parabolas. That was
Why'd you do that?
about 9 years ago. Well, I was invited to go.
Uh-huh.
And I thought that would be an amazing experience. Again, I've always been interested in space and space travel. So that's as close I figured I'd ever get.
Did
I
your
was the
husband
oldest.
Bill do it?
No,
No?
just me. And with my son. And it was an amazing day. I was the oldest person on the plane. I'd do it again. I'd really be an old person on the plane now. But it was fabulous. It was an
Cool.
amazing experience. It's
We know many of you have experienced that. I've never asked you if you've experienced that, Marty. Did you ever do the vomit comet?
No, I have not.
Oh, okay.
yeah, you're weightless for about 20
I
seconds
bet you'd
at a
be
time.
good on it, Marty. He'd be doing tumbling around,
Throwing
stuff like
M&Ms.
that, and not me. I'd be grabbing that barf bag.
Well, I did that too.
Marty was going to defend himself there, but he. Well, tell us. There's one of your artworks there,
Right.
and you've drawn this artwork. But
Mhm.
before we get into your book, there, I want to ask you about. You saw 3 Apollo
Yes,
Saturn V rocket launches.
in person. Yeah, that was something to see. When I was in college, Christmas break, and we drove down and spent the night in my Chevy 2 on the beach, on the shore of the Titusville, just down the road here, and with a lot of other people
Mhm.
in their cars.
This was Apollo 8.
This was Apollo 8. It was a few days before Christmas. That's the one where they read.
On Christmas Eve.
Christmas
over the
Eve,
moon.
they read from Genesis as they
Yeah,
went
it's like
around.
December 21st or something launch.
Right, that's
Really.
exactly right. It was just the beginning of our Christmas break from University of Florida, and so we came down, and I thought, well, what could be a neater thing to do on the way home than to stop and see a launch?
Yeah, right.
So I got to see
To
that,
the moon.
and then went back to see.
You made a statement about how you felt about that.
Oh, I felt I couldn't miss it because I felt like I was waving goodbye to Columbus. That's how it felt.
I
and
told
it was
Marty
an
that
amazing-
what a neat analogy. She
It was-
thought she was waving goodbye to Columbus.
Yeah,
And,
well,
on the Nina Pinta and Santa Maria.
yeah,
there.
the first ones, that
I
was
agree. Yeah, that's a beautiful analogy. That's really something else. And then you saw them actually land on the moon.
Yeah. So we watched. We came up and visited in '69, the summer of '69, very hot to sleep in your car in 1969 on the shore of
Right.
Titusville. But we did it anyway, and with some friends, and I watched that as well. And then we also drove up to see 15. I don't remember how I happened to get a pass, but I got a pass onto the Kennedy Space Center, and we got to be a little closer. And those rockets, I think they've done something. They've changed the sound suppression, I think, because back then, with that 7.5 million pounds of thrust, and you're on the Indian River early in the morning when those things launched, and the river would be flat like a mirror. And I remember watching it, and I thought, wow, it went so slow when it went up the tower. I think it took like 12 seconds or so to clear the tower. Very slow. Where the shuttle scooted off. This went very slow. And then the sound, you see the water rippling across the Indian River as far north as we could see, and north and south. And it was coming, and then it just, as it came to the shore, it just enveloped us. It was really something else.
What a description
It
there
was
from
something.
Adrienne Romberger there of the Saturn V. That is beautiful, Marty. He saw all of them himself. Comment there, my friend.
I was going to comment on what Adrian said. We didn't have sound suppression system back on Apollo days. You
Oh,
didn't have
really?
the water deluge.
Well, no wonder.
Yeah, that's and
Because-
the windows would be rattling over here,
Right.
11, 12 miles away, and
Right.
very interesting. How do you look back on that 50 years later that we've not been back? I mean,
Yeah, I know. It's sad, really. But at the same token, all the amazing things that were done with the shuttle, the experiments, the progress in science that was made on the shuttle. So, it's a whole different thing, but it's, one was experiments and one was more exploration, but they're both pretty special, very special.
yes, oh, absolutely. The shuttle era, we love talking about the 30 years. It has now changed our society and the
Yes.
orbiting International Space Station. 52 years ago, at this very moment, 3 astronauts are headed to the moon on Apollo 14 with Alan Shepard and Ed Mitchell and Stu Rosa, and
with
they've
his
all
golf
passed
ball.
away. Yeah, and golf. He had a 6-iron packed in his bag
Yep.
and a golf ball there. So, and I always love bragging about Marty Winkle, our co-producer here, was involved with electrical engineer on those lunar modules.
What a thrill.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, let's talk about your book here, as we've enjoyed sharing some space history with Adrienne Romberger here. And just want to ask you what your maiden name is.
Ebert.
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 Just to throw that out there.
Ebert.
Okay.
Also a German
Any
name.
Eberts live around here?
My sister.
All right.
Yeah, but she's not an Ebert anymore.
Yeah,
But
well-
yeah, my sister lives. So there's 2 Eberts.
I never want to forget about women, that you had another career, so to speak. Yes, Marty.
Well, there's more than 2. There's Jeff Eberts that worked on Space Shuttle.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
All right, good. Well, tell us a little bit about this book, and you're the artist here, and
Right.
and I like your style, and kind of give us a thumbnail of what's going on here.
Well, the story basically is some of my personal history and some of the history that I love about the space program. So I blended it together, and so it starts out probably the way Tom Jones's might have started out with his grandmother, if he were to write one.
Yes.
That my grandmother told me that someday in 1958, not long after Sputnik had gone up, my grandmother told me that someday, Adrienne, you could go to space. And so that day was show and tell. So I was so excited. I said, oh my gosh, my grandmother was born in 1885. So she saw a lot of things change.
Absolutely.
Talk about change. So I said, I thought, well, I'm going to tell it at show and tell. So at show and tell, I raised my hand and they said yes, because I was very shy. I never raised my hand. And I said, someday I'm going to go to space. And there was dead silence in the room. And I thought, well, I got to fill the void. So I said, well, and I'm all excited. Well, they cracked up. They laughed so hard, including the teacher. I was mortified, but it didn't quell my interest in space. It was pretty funny, actually. But no people had been to space. So for me to make that statement was pretty absurd. But anyway, so that started it. And so the grandmother in the story is telling the little boy about how she had been interested as a child when her grandmother told her someday she could go to space. But then she says, but I'd like to tell you my favorite rocket story. So she tells the story of a brand new rocket in town called Gus. And Gus really takes the readers through the history of the U.S. space program of human space travel. It takes them to a Mercury Redstone, and then to a Gemini, and I called there you go. There's the
Well, you use the rocket garden.
right. I took photos of the rocket
KSC
garden. Yep, because I
as
worked
your
there.
background there,
Exactly.
and
So the Gus.
So people are making fun of
Gus.
of Gus,
Right.
and Gus is this yellow. He's the yellow spaceship there.
Right.
It's the winged spacecraft that's
Right.
on the cover.
He's
here.
sort of a combination of a few different spacecraft. There is no spacecraft exactly like Gus,
Right.
but he's a little bit of a combo of a shuttle, of a Dream Chaser, the Sierra Space Dream
Yep,
Chaser,
yep.
of an X. What's the
The 37B.
yeah, the
space plane. Yeah, it is. You
X-37B,
got
a little bit of all of those. So I blended him together, so sort of a rocket of the future, and so but the other rockets who have been around a long time, not the original Mercury ones, but he's the new rocket in town, and the other current rockets were kind of making fun of him. Who do you think? You're so dinky and small. How do you think you can compete with us?
yes.
So the whole point of the story is to take kids through history and inspire them to work hard, like Gus did, like the grandmother did too, to reach their goals.
And you even got a little subliminal SpaceX being laughed at.
A little bit, yes, in the early days. That's
yeah,
right.
in the early days, they were laughed at for what they were trying to do, just like Gus here, the space craft there. And actually, I think 19 times Elon Musk's failed to land that first stage, and on the 20th attempt, or one of the later ones when he was about broke,
Right.
it worked.
Right.
And that's
Right.
worked over 150 times or so.
Well, we'll talk about perseverance.
Yeah, exactly.
And
yeah,
that's why-
and that's what's in this book is
Right.
a message to kids to persevere, and your dreams can come true. So it's a happy ending, right?
It does have a happy ending. Yeah.
And so we have this at our gift shop, and we See Moose Stories. See Moose Stories is your publishing
Yes.
LLC you created there, and you've got the let's see, here's your beautiful picture of you that you said was taken where?
It was taken in Australia, over by the Gold Coast.
Did you hear that, Scott Pook and Cliff Watson? Scott Pook's in Tasmania.
Oh, is he in
Yep,
Tasmania?
yep.
Yeah,
He was
we
a
went
guest
there as
on
well.
here. Did you go to
Oh,
Tasmania?
it's lovely.
Oh, wow.
Beautiful. Yep.
Yeah, that looks like a Hawaii.
Yeah.
It really.
Yes, it's beautiful.
The gorgeous stuff
It's
everywhere
stunning.
you look there. And here's the book, Ticket to Space. Okay, you can buy it on Amazon with your Smile rewards, as us American Space Museum is your nonprofit. All right, and you mentioned to me in our little pre-production meeting that you had an astronaut kind of give you some advice with this
Yes.
book that was very helpful.
Yes. Four-time astronaut Don Thomas, a wonderful, lovely man. I had the privilege to be with him for a few days at the Kennedy Space Center while I was the tour guide, and they needed a tour guide. They always have a tour guide be with the astronaut of the day. So it was my turn, and had some wonderful conversations with him. And I told him I had written this book, but I wasn't doing anything with it. I just was showing it to my grandchildren. And he had just written a book about Ohio astronauts. And he was kind enough he spent a fair amount of time with me at our spare moments during that time, and even with some follow-up emails to help me figure out how to publish it, what's a good route, what's a bad route to go. And he was just an inspiration on so many levels. And to have an astronaut help me or inspire me or encourage me was so touching, because I know he's a busy man. And that was very, very nice.
Thomas is a very busy man promoting space with kids and
Yes.
stuff. And he loves that just like you do, Adrienne.
He does.
And he was just out at the Space Center a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah, well, I'll let you know next time he's out there.
Yeah.
He's a frequent astronaut of the day out there at their wonderful astronaut encounter program, led by Mr. Nick Thomas. And,
Yes. Nick.
we saw Nick today, and Nick will be here February 20th on the date that John Glenn orbited the Earth, and
there
tell
you
us some
go.
John Glenn stories with the one and only Mr. Nick Thomas.
Nick Thomas, great guy.
So,
Tell Nick I said hi.
well, I will.
Next time you see him.
Yeah, I definitely will. We'll probably see him out there we try to go out there a couple times a week to see the astronauts and support the program out there. But to move from your book, anything final to say about the Ticket to Space there? We want
No,
y'all to.
I just hope that I thank you so much for giving me this opportunity and at this beautiful museum you have.
Oh, well,
And
thank you.
It's a lovely museum, and but I really do appreciate
Well, you
the
met our
opportunity.
executive director, Karen Conklin, and
Yes.
we're quite proud of her leadership and how we celebrate space history.
Hmm.
And now we've got a very active science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, a STEAM program
Isn't that
that
great?
that
Fantastic.
Karen's always wanted. So, a comment on our UCAC microphone there, Marty.
Yeah, Cynthia Rossi wants 2 autographed copies of your book.
Cynthia Rossi wants 2 autographed copies. Okay.
And then Doug Forrest made a
Well,
comment.
what we'll do, Cynthia, is we'll have her leave them up here with your name on them, and we can take care of those arrangements at your convenience. One of our top fans up there.
Oh, that's fantastic.
She's often in line getting an astronaut autograph too. Yes, Marty.
And Doug Forrest made a comment several minutes ago. The movie you were talking about was A Man with a Golden Gun.
Ah.
Man with the golden
And
gun.
did he say who was in that?
No, it
I
didn't.
can't
He'll tell us in a minute. He's in
He probably
Hollywood.
will.
Man with the golden gun. I think that's Roger Moore.
Roger Moore. That's
Yeah,
it.
That's what I think is Roger Moore.
It was Roger Moore.
Yeah. Sweet. All right. Good. Well, we really enjoyed this, and it'd be remiss if we didn't mention other children's books up there, like Teddy Tusker is another popular book there, and I forget our author that did that. That's a space worker. I have to get those cells up there. But Sharon McDougall, shown here, has a cute little book, Suit Up for Launch with Shay. Sharon McDougall was a suit tech in Houston. She actually fitted the astronauts in their suits,
In
which
Houston?
the
Isn't
pumpkin
that something?
suits are small, medium, and large.
Uh-huh.
And she'd get them all hooked up in there and then be present at all those photo sessions to make sure that the suits didn't get damaged or anything. And you're, in fact, Sharon, we stay in touch, and she was recently at Smithsonian Air and Space Museum, where she was suiting up for Launch with Shay as part of their Flights of Fancy story time.
Exactly.
So most museums do have story time in there. Maybe that'll be something that we'll put in the works here, is read y'all's books from time to time to our youth. So, give Sharon a plug there. She is very active with her website, SharonCaplesMcDougall.com. That's Sharon Caples, CAPLESMCDOUGLE.com, and we're always happy to help her out. She's been on Stay Curious, and next time she's in town, we're putting her on this side of the microphone. So a little bit of space history, Adrienne, that we'd love for you to chime in on. Marty is always sending me clips from the newspaper. He still likes to get his hands all dirty with that ink, and quite frankly, I miss it myself, being a newsman. But thank you, Marty, for keeping me up to date on current events, as these astronauts were honored as receiving the Space Medal of Honor. We've got there our Demo 2 Dragon astronauts.
Is it Bob and Doug?
Yeah, Bob Benkin and Doug Hurley. Thank you for jogging my mind there with Vice President
Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris. Vice President Kamala Harris. That's how much I keep up with the news on there.
It's great.
Well, I got thinking of a lot of things where I'm going
There's
next
a lot of
too
things
on
going
here
on in your
because,
mind.
no, that's awesome that they were honored there. Actually met Doug Hurley at Zarella's restaurant. He was there. He with a group of during the Artemis launch, and he was honored to meet astronaut. The Skylab astronaut, Jack Lausma.
Oh,
Yeah,
Jack
yeah,
Lausma.
Yeah, it was interesting. We were actually with a group that was having dinner with Jack Lausma, and all of a sudden Doug Hurley comes over wanting to ask permission to meet Jack Lausma, the Skylab
Isn't that something?
astronaut as well as a shuttle astronaut.
At the pizza place.
Yeah, and Zarella's there.
Zarellas.
Yeah.
I think Don Thomas brought some of their pizza to space.
I believe he did.
Yeah.
Yeah. John Zarella, CNN par excellence reporter. We need
Mm-hmm.
on Stay Curious here. His son runs that in there. So that was a bit of good news up there. Always
great.
awesome to honor our astronaut heroes in a public manner there. And then what else is in? Of course, what else is in news? Mintaka, the astronaut groundhog, all right, is shown there. This is February 2nd, so of course, Puxatawny Phil looking at his shadow there at Gobbler's Knob this morning in Pennsylvania. And I was looking for Mark Usiak to cover that. And I guess Mark wasn't there today. And Hazel Banks, I'm glad that you're watching today. She probably knows that Puxatawny Phil saw his shadow, and that means 6 more weeks of winter. Well, duh, we're in the middle of the cross-quarter days between winter solstice and the vernal equinox of spring. And maybe you didn't know these days between the equinoxes of the autumn and winter, spring, and then the summer and winter solstices all have 6 weeks later are monumental days that we celebrate. There's your winter solstice, going to spring equinox. Candlemas is what the Europeans of old called this cross-quarter day. We know it as Groundhog's Day. Mm-hmm. Another cross-quarter day between spring and summer is May Day. And you and I are old enough that was a huge day in school.
It was.
We're going around the maypole and play hopscotch and just all kinds of, just a day to, if you're at school on May 1st, it was like recess all day, wasn't it?
It was.
To celebrate the one, getting out of school pretty soon, and 2, that the weather was broke. And then, of course, between the summer solstice and autumnal equinox is Lammas, which was a Druid type of celebration back into your Stonehenge days, where the harvest of wheat was coming in, and they would bake bread in the shape of owls and so forth for the wise summer days. And then, of course, between autumnal equinox and winter is called All Saints' Day behind me, better known to all you out there as Halloween, the Day of the Dead. That's where the Halloween traditions come in. So this Groundhog Day is truly a cross-quarter day, as the Earth does its 365 and a quarter days around the solar system there, around the solar system, around our sun. One other bit of news we wanted to get in there, Adrienne, talking about astronauts, is this astronaut, John Acaba, is now the chief of astronauts. He will be responsible for selecting astronauts for future Artemis missions, including commercial flights of the ISS. And he, no doubt, will be in the selection process of the first man and another man and the first woman on the moon. And the first person of color could be that man or the woman herself on there. They're expected to name the Artemis 2 crew that will fly around the moon and not land. All right, by this spring. They may launch by 2024, we hope. Depending on that crew selection, Acaba may have input into the history-making decision of the first woman to go to the moon. And he succeeds Reed Weissman, who held the position for 2 years. And he is himself an Artemis astronaut. So he is in play to be boots on the ground on the moon. I look at Joe Acaba as being the commander of the lunar outpost, is my guess there. But congratulations to you. And we're glad Ophelia Sauterel's watching in Normandy, France. Thank you, Doug Forrest, for your Hollywood insight there to The Man with the Golden Gun. Cynthia Rossi, we'll make sure you get 2 books there. I'm not even sure how much we're selling them for. Bill Whiting, good to hear you and see you yesterday. Dave Stangy's watching. Cliff Watson, 200 stars from Australia. It's Friday down there. Hope everybody's getting paid on TGIF Day down there. Cliff Watson, he's in Pomona, Australia. Steve Hammer's watching. Denny Noah. Daniel DeYoung is an airline pilot. Christopher Mick. And Tom Usiak's watching from Pennsylvania there. So everybody looked in Colts and cold weather in Pennsylvania there as we were looking at the guys getting their medals there, Doug Hurley and Bob Benkin. You had the weather on the bottom. Maybe y'all noticed there, a warm day of 80 degrees here today and lows in those high 60s, just like we love it. So.
Another 6 weeks of that. Wouldn't that be awful?
Yeah, we do have 6 weeks of that down here. Good point. I know y'all want to see our Mintaka astronaut groundhog again there, so that's appropriate to mention that. Yep. Yeah, we have to suffer through another 6 weeks, Marty, of winter down here in Central Florida.
Terrible.
Terrible. Somebody has to do it.
Somebody has to.
Right? Adrienne, it's been delightful having you here. I feel like we've made
much.
A good new friend at our museum.
You. We have.
Your husband, Bill, thank you for bailing us out here. She showed up in a beautiful green blouse. That wasn't going to work on our green screen to show these beautiful faces, these kids that enjoyed hearing your story of Ticket to Space there. So look that up on Amazon and share that with your kids, aimed at the young kids there. And are you going to write another book?
I'm starting one. Yes, a sequel to this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're glad to hear that.
I'm working on it.
Super. Marty, we have anything to clean up on our Streamlabs production today?
Nope, we're all caught up.
All right. Thank you for a good job today. And again, thank you everybody for watching Stay Curious. Tomorrow, we're going to take you to the moon on Apollo 14.
Oh.
The landing is February 5th, 1971. And tomorrow, that being a Saturday, we want to share that exciting lunar landing of Alan Shepard. In fact, Alan Shepard, of the 6 landings, he was the most hit the bullseye, closer than anybody. Imagine that. After 15 minutes of space, he went back to the moon, and he has the most accurate bullseye landing. But one of those legs was in a crater, and they were a little bit tipped there. We'll talk all about that tomorrow on Stay Curious with me, Mark Marquette. Can't wait to see you again to bridge the space between us.